Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Story Behind the Stories for the May 17th, 2024 edition of the Neepawa Banner Press. Feels kind of crazy to be through this much of the month of May already. We're going to be sliding into the next month before we notice, I guess. But let's focus on the paper. I'm your host this week, Casper, Wehrhahn, writer, photographer, and archivist for the Neepawa Banner Press. And I'm joined this week by Ken. Ken, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope everybody notices the Santa Claus beard.
Yeah, it's coming in quite well, looking very sharp, yeah.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's sure growing anyway.
It's a very nice defining feature, I think.
I'm going to say something right off the top. You said archivist, and we had that little thing this morning with the archives. So we got a call this morning, and apparently a gentleman in our picture, in our looking back, is named incorrectly. That's true, but he was named incorrectly. Well, John, Jack, not a big difference, but he was named incorrectly back in the day when it was printed in the Neepawa Press, long before we had anything to do with the Neepawa Press, just to set the record straight. We didn't make the mistake.
Yes, it was a well-meaning call. I mean, Joel, who took the call, he came down to me in the archives because I was down there at the time, just happened to be this morning, and said, oh, such and such called, there is grandchild, and they said it wasn't a big deal, but just so you know, it's Jack, not John. I was like, okay, I'll double check that, and it's like, yeah, it's in the press as John, but you know what, I'll put in a note for next week just saying, this is how it was in the original copy, and thank you for calling in so that we could set the record straight for our own archive purposes as well. Just keep up the accuracy. If we do a archive search on our online archives, that'll come up in those results as well. And then, of course, just for general public knowledge, someone will go and read that note in the coming week and be like, oh, yes, okay, good.
Yeah, I've been around long enough that I knew the gentleman in question very, very well, actually. It was in his store and in his office many, many times, 50 years ago. Anyway, carry on.
Right, so starting with this week, the main contents that we want to go through for this episode, we're going to start off right on the front page, of course, as always. We have a few different things on there, but for the moment, we're going to focus on some visually stunning aspects of it, and that is to do with the Northern Lights. There was a lot of Northern Lights in the area, very vibrant, I must say. We had some pictures submitted to us from Lila's Bakery, and another individual as well on page 12. I don't recall if we have the name stated there, but I think it is. Yeah, Francis, is it Eddie? It might be Eddie. I apologize if I've mispronounced that, but a lot of good photos there. Be sure to check those out. Pick up a hard copy of the paper. Of course, you'll get a much better look at them as opposed to just me holding this up for you to look at here on the screen. And I mean, it'll be wonderful size for you to take in all of the details on that. But shifting over to the news portion, there's quite a big news story on the front page this week, Ken.
Yeah, it's give the government full credit on this one. And the town of Carberry and the area. Last year, the emergency room at Carberry Hospital was closed because the doctors retired or went off contract. And so during the election campaign, now Premier Wab Kinew promised Ray Muirhead, the mayor of Carberry, we will open the ER. And they came through on that promise this week. They found 3 doctors. I think 2 are from Brandon and 1 is from Verdon, I believe. And they're coming in and going to have the ER available supposedly 24/7. They very smartly opened the ER on the day of the press conference, which is good politics, good news. But I think, though, this coming week, actually the ER is going to be shut down again because they weren't able to keep the staffing through the whole weekend. But the people of Carberry and the council of Carberry are very, very happy. And we should all be happy for this because when Carberry ER closed down, it put a huge load onto Neepawa Hospital. And it's the nearest ER. Well, I guess Brandon's a little closer, but everybody knows that you're going to get service faster in a rural ER than you will at Brandon. You can wait a long time in Brandon. They're dealing with generally some more severe cases, and quite frankly, a lot of mental health issues in the ER in Brandon. Been there, done that, seen it. So this is good news for Carberry and for the RM of North Cypress Langford and for the whole area.
For sure, yeah. I mean, as Ken mentioned, these doctors are coming from other communities to Carberry to help out there. They have their own practices at the locations that they're coming from. But I mean, this is big for Carberry. I mean, as you've said, Ken, when the Carberry ER had to close, all those people had to find somewhere else to go to, right? So I mean, that's the hospital here in Neepawa, doctors here in Neepawa, or other communities that happen to have the services available for them for that. So it adds an extra factor at that point of, you know, seeing that your healthcare needs are seen to and you're getting the care that you need. So for them to be able to open this facility again, I think is very important, and we'll hopefully be able to keep going strong in the future. They can get some more staff in and keep providing services that are needed.
Yeah, and there's two aspects to that. One is the normal ER, cuts, bumps, bruises, accidents, severe illness, that kind of thing. But when when there's no doctors in the community with a clinic practice, then everybody has to go to the ER if they need to be looked after, for maybe less severe things, but still serious things. And I know the last time I had a count taken, they were doing over 40 ER patients a day or per 24-hour cycle in Neepawa. And so this hopefully will maybe back that off a little bit and make it a little more sustainable at Neepawa.
Right, and with the new hospital coming up, of course that's a bit of ways yet. We'll hopefully have some more capacity there, but it's going to be some time until we get that. So to have more services in the area is definitely a boon to everyone.
Well, the other thing is that the government doesn't seem to, maybe they do realize it, but they're not doing the math. Like, I mean, we've increased our population. Mm-hmm. Not only, I don't mean just in Neepawa, I mean in the whole province. They've got a few thousand, at least several hundred more refugees than they used to have, several hundred more foreign students than we used to have, and then the natural population growth. And so you can't service more people with fewer people.
Right.
And the biggest problem is that they have not educated enough doctors. They're starting to change that a little bit. But if you decide today we're going to have another 30 doctors per year, you're 7 years away from the solution. Mm-hmm. Because it's a 7-year program to become a doctor.
Yeah, and that's kind of something that you've talked about, even just with the paper here itself, just sort of as a little aside there, but you've talked to us before about capacity and having the capacity to do things how they should be done properly and take care of all that. So, I mean, that applies to any field. You need the capacity to get the job done and get it done well.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of it boils down to math.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something else actually returning to Carberry is a bit of a combined functional event. It is a memorial and a fundraiser for the community. This particular event was started in 2023, 1 year after the loss of Kalina Green, and it was made to honor her memory, celebrate her life and her adventurous spirit. And she was a very active individual in the community, both in terms of like physical activity and then just being around the community, getting involved in different things. She was a teacher there as well. So that is returning this year to raise funds for the Carberry Splash Park Committee. But there's a added thing as well for this year. This event is also dedicated to all those who have lost a loved one.
Wow. Well, and I've talked to the one family. I know the one family very well, and they have come through this with the idea of if we can do anything to help other people avoid the tragedy, or if the tragedy comes anyway, to help people through it. And they have a great spirit, that family, in terms of helping other people. I'm sure the other family does too, but I don't know the second family. But I do know the one family personally quite well, and have for a number of years.
Right. Yeah. I didn't mention it at the start there, but this year the event does include the Campbell family and Xander's Legacy Fund as part of this year's event as well. So there's going to be some fundraising for that particular support as well. People can choose what they want to give to, or they can just give a general donation, and we split 50-50. Both of them are great causes for the community, and just sort of a good benefit in general, I feel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a great way for the community to come together to address a real emotional need and put some money in place to help people through these things.
Definitely, yeah. And I mean, there's some great quotes in there. I won't, obviously, you need to grab a copy of the paper and read the full story yourself, but Jara Green, who I had permission to use some quotes from a public statement, and then I spoke to her on the phone as well. She talked really well about, the importance of having connection and support if you're dealing with grief and loss. And I think this will be sort of a good, different way for all members of the community to come together and get that. Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
Another event, just sort of down the road from Carberry, right here in Neepawa, that is returning for its second year as well, is the Sober Social, hosted by Frozen Fire Studios. They're planning that event for Friday, June 7th. It focuses around a message of hope and support, but aside from the serious stuff as well, which is obviously very important, there's a focus on just fun and having a good time as well, socializing, making connections.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I mean, it's interesting. I've been involved with a lot of committees over the years, and sometimes the alcoholic socials make some money, but sometimes they don't make very much money. And I think this speaks well to the side of the social need, that you don't have to have alcohol all the time to have fun. And I wouldn't be surprised if they make more money than some of the alcohol socials, because drinking alcohol in large amounts is certainly not a good thing, and certainly not if you're planning to drive. And that has certainly taken off some of the profitability of some of these regular socials, because quick story, when I was growing up in the small town of Holland, we would go to town Saturday night, and once a week basically park our vehicle and whatever, and get the groceries and watch people walk by and visit and whatever. And then as we're going out of town, we go past the hotel at the bottom of the street, bottom of the hill, and there'd be trucks and cars parked all around the hotel, often with mums and kids in the trucks. They were waiting for the dad to come out of the beer parlor, because women were not allowed, of course kids weren't, in the beer parlor.
Right.
But they're waiting for dad to come out to drive them home.
Those two should not mix.
It was the way it was. 1950s and 60s, it was just the way it was. And it was, most times nothing bad happened, but sometimes there was some really bad things happened.
Right, and that's definitely something that you want to avoid. And I mean, yeah, like this, I think an event like this is great because, you might feel pressured at another event to, partake in alcohol. Like maybe you don't really want to, but, the pressure is there. There's societal pressure. Maybe, people aren't saying directly to you, oh yeah, have a drink, but, you're in the environment, so you might feel like there is a pressure to partake in alcohol. So if you have a clean event like this, I mean, obviously that pressure is gone, so people can just get out there, do their thing, and have fun.
Yeah, no, it's a great initiative, and I wish them all the best with it. I probably won't go because I can't stand the loud music. I'm old.
No, I get you. Younger, of course, but I do have sensitive ears. There's a certain decibel threshold I can't really go past. It gets to be a little bit too much. So
Too much. Eh?
yeah. But no, great event, and has a bit of a fundraiser attached to that as well. Last year they raised $625 for Mouse Mental Health. This year they are getting proceeds for Westman Mental Wellness and Suicide Prevention. So great cause once again this year, and I wish them all the best.
Yeah, no. We got lots of causes this week.
We sure do. Our next cause is over on page 8, and this was one that I was happy to learn a bit more about because I've heard about this but didn't really quite know how it worked. That's Habitat for Humanity. And John Lavich, the chairperson for the Neepawa chapter, which got started here very recently, was speaking at the Rotary Club luncheon on May 8th. I was very happy to attend that. It was sort of a nice event for a change. Got out of the office for a little bit. I mean, we had the time on that Wednesday for me to sneak out there and see how things go.
You got away from me and Owen.
Yeah. Got away from the rowdy partiers.
Yeah.
But no, it was good. John gave a great little speech there on what Habitat for Humanity is, how it works, and all that. And I'll touch on a couple things, but of course, go see the full story in the paper so you can get all the details and see what went down there. But yeah, it was fascinating. I mean, the Neepawa chapter is going to be servicing Neepawa, Gladstone, Carberry, and Minnedosa. And they have different committees involved to help them, manage things, get things going, select the families and all that, and then of course like fundraise, etc. Because they are going to need to do that for maybe a few years until things get going here. But they can do a maximum house of just on one level, like 1,000 square feet. They may be able to do like a basement or something, depending what the family needs. But so pretty fair sized house, and I found it interesting. They can purchase the house at market value, no interest on loan, no down payment required. All they really need to do is $750 a month, minimum 15 years, and of course $500 worth community service or like put towards the house itself to help out with getting it built. So that was really fascinating to learn about.
Yeah, and people might think of Habitat for Humanity. One of their most famous participants is former President Jimmy Carter, and in the news now recently because Jimmy is 99 years old, but until he was 90 plus, he was still out there banging hammers and working on Habitat for Humanity projects, both him and his late wife Rosalind. They tell me, news reports say that Jimmy is near the end of his life and will be passing pretty quickly, but he went to, I don't know, dozens if not hundreds of Habitat for Humanity projects, actually worked on them, and of course his celebrity status helped raise money and public awareness of the Habitat for Humanity project.
Right, yeah, no, that's very, very glad to be hearing about that involvement in it. And yeah, the hearing about how it works and how it's going to keep moving forward, because I was curious about that as well, as how once they get things on track, how it works from there. And it sounds like once they build enough houses, it sort of starts just paying for itself. The money will come back to the community afterwards, and then eventually they won't need to fundraise for a build, which is, I mean, that's sort of the point you want to be at with something like this. Mm-hmm.
No, it's a tremendous program, and it doesn't build a large number of houses, but everything helps.
Definitely. I mean, we've spoken on this a little bit on the show, but we have growing population. The area has growing population, and as part of that, housing is definitely a need. And, with the economy as well, it's a little tougher a lot tougher, I'll be honest, to get into a house or even a place to rent. I'll be honest, rent can be quite steep there. So anything like this, definitely very beneficial
Oh, yeah.
for everyone.
For sure.
We have a bit of time here left still. So, actually, one thing I'll quickly mention before we move on to the next story. One other important thing that happened at this meeting was the presentation of a pin and certificate to Pam Miller, Rotary member, to declare her a Paul Harris Fellow. So congratulations, Pam, on that. Moving on to our next story now, something returning for its 9th year, which I'm sure many people will be excited to hear about, is the 9th annual Neepawa District Chamber Fair.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's not a fair like they used to have, with cattle and horses and vegetables and fruit and all that kind of stuff and being exhibited. But it is run by the Neepawa District Chamber of Commerce, and the big attraction, of course, is the Midway Company Select Shows are coming back again this year. Great hit last year, and we've got a picture in the paper of last year's event from the air, and it's quite a spread. Kids love it, parents not so much because it costs some money, but it's a highlight of the year for the young people to. It's a few years ago since I went on the Ferris wheel, but I probably won't go again. But it is pretty fun to get way up there and you can see the whole town from the top of the Ferris wheel.
It really is, yeah.
Cool.
I have to say, anytime I go to a fair, I really enjoy going on the Ferris wheel myself. You get just a nice view of the surrounding area. It's quite the perspective.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, they seem to run a good show, and it's always interesting to see what kind of silly games they have you to waste your money on. Anyway, no, that's good. That's coming up the end of the month, eh? 25th, 24th, 25th?
24th, 26th, yeah. So there'll be something on each of those days. There's a full schedule, of course, which we're very happy to get as an advertisement in this week's paper on page 20. Full page, you can see all the details right on there for everything that's going on here.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of yard sales in town that day.
Definitely,
a ton of yard sales. Mm-hmm. And food trucks and the pancake breakfast on the Saturday. And it's mostly just the rides on the Friday night, and then food trucks and the rides and reptile gardens on the Sunday. But the biggest day is the Saturday, of course.
Definitely, yeah, lots to see. And Ken, you touched on something kind of interesting as well. There used to be cattle shows, etc., at fairs in the past. And I mean, there's been some very interesting historical photos in some of the books that we have in the office library, as it were. And I'm kind of curious if that's something they'll maybe consider in the future, is perhaps getting the 4-H club involved for some sort of showing in the future.
Well, they might. It's interesting. The Ag Society is still functioning, and they have the big ag complex there. They probably put on 4 or 5 bull sales every spring there, or host them. They don't put them on. And then there's the 4-H. Neepawa 4-H Club has their achievement there, and the following day the regional clubs come together and they have their 4-H achievement, which is a huge cattle show. And then in August is I believe it's the first weekend in August, is the Manitoba Beef Roundup, and that's a fairly big show too. So there's probably, there's no horses right now, but probably as many cattle being shown through that facility as there ever was. It's just that it's on, about 7 different days rather than one day.
Right.
Yeah. So it's good. I mean, lots of opportunity to see quality livestock. The fairs some of them are still going strong around the country, but every year 1 or 2 more seem to drop off. There's still a decent fair at Kelwood, and some of the areas west of here. Minnedosa has a good fair, and other communities do as well. Carberry has a tremendous fair, and it's more of the traditional one with the cattle and the horses and the pies and the cookies and the fruit and the vegetables and everything. It's more of a traditional fair.
Right. We are starting to run low on time, and I want to make sure we have some time to address this part of the paper as well. But if I may be so brazen as to phrase it this way, Parks Canada is in our hot seat this week, getting a lot of attention in regards to zebra mussels up at Clear Lake it was, right?
Yeah, Clear Lake. Yeah, there's 2 or maybe 3 items in here this week on that, including my column. I guess they found a few, well, some say that they hadn't found any. They found DNA. Others say that they found some zebra mussels in Clear Lake. Certainly there's zebra mussels in several lakes, including Lake Manitoba, Lake Winnipeg, as I understand it. But I did a little reading on it. There's 750 trillion zebra mussels in the Great Lakes. So they're hoping it can stop the spread of them into Clear Lake. Some people say, why? Because now it's reported that the Great Lakes are much clearer than they used to be, because these little suckers eat a lot of the stuff that's in water that make this water murky. Mm-hmm. Now, you don't want to step on them, I guess. The shells are pretty sharp. And I had to laugh, though. Whatever. You don't want your kids or your pets stepping on the mussels shells in the lake. I thought, well, whatever, okay. I'm far more worried about broken beer bottles in the lake, stepping on that, than I am on a mussel, but whatever. But I used the headline, swatting flies with a sledgehammer. No boats, no paddle boards, no jet skis. Well, they haven't been allowing jet skis for a long time in Clear Lake, blah, 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 blah. And they're going to stop zebra mussels. No, they're not. I could be wrong, but I don't think they are. And talk about different other eradication programs that the government has had over the years, like various weeds and stuff like that. Control them, yes, but stop them, eradicate them, not happening. And I can't see this happening. I think they spoiling a lot of fun and destroying quite a bit of business, tourism business, by pretending that they're going to do something with the zebra mussels. Now, I'm outspoken. I agree. I'm old. I'm grumpy. Outspoken. I could be wrong. We'd welcome people's feedback on whether they agree or whether they don't agree.
Definitely, yeah. And I mean, it's something interesting to take a look at for sure. I only was able to really get a glance at this for a couple minutes before I had to go do something more work-oriented specifically. But I mean, yeah, there are certain benefits that zebra mussels do provide. I mean, as you mentioned, the Great Lakes are a lot clearer now because they did a lot of filtering out of other stuff, and that is something that they do. But of course, they are an invasive species, so while they do have some benefits, there's cons to them as well. I mean, invasive species, they bring change that definitely aren't desired either. I mean, it changes things up with, I mean, depending what it is, like food chain, etc. So definitely something to keep watch of there, and at least in terms of controlling zebra mussels, hopefully they can rein it in before it becomes a huge problem.
Maybe we could gather them up and grind them up and make fertilizer.
You never know, maybe.
I don't know.
Trawl for them or something.
Yeah, I don't
know. We have a couple quick minutes here. So yeah, once again, if you have any feedback on this, we'd be happy to hear from you. We do accept letters to the editor. I'll give a little plug to that at the end of the show. But before we close out here, I do just want to mention a couple quick things. We have on page 1011 our home garden feature. I believe the last one for this month, right, Ken?
I think maybe it might be one more, but anyway, it's and this week we've got featuring pictures from the Lily Nook and from the greenhouse in Neepawa.
Yeah, very nice to have those photos in here, highlighting those greenhouses. We had a couple different ones featured last week, and so we brought in our other ones this week. And while we didn't have an advertisement from the Lily Nook, it's just a nice flower sort of oriented facility within the community, and we have had lots of advertising from them in the past, and we always like to give them a bit of a shout out there for the great work that they do over there. As well, on page 18, a nice sort of sports oriented story from Owen, the Grit Force Fitness competing at the Comp 2024. That's all we have time for though, so be sure to look at the hard copy of the paper for everything from this week. We do accept letters to the editor, as I mentioned before, news tips, photos, etc. at news@neepawabanner.com, or give us a call, 204 476-3401, and ads at neepawabanner.com for any advertising. Thank you, and have a great week.